Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order, please. The first item on the agenda is the committee meeting minutes from our Operations Committee of October 9th, 2018. Are there any corrections, deletions? My mic is on. Are there any corrections, deletions, omissions? No?
No.
Seeing none, we'll take consensus, starting with Mrs. Corso.
I don't think I was at that meeting. Was I at that meeting?
No, you weren't, so you can abstain.
Abstain.
We'll start with Mr. Ross.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes, thank you. Next item of business is the Board of Education Financial Report for October 2018. Mr. Barone.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Just gonna go through our projections and highlight any changes we might have. I guess I'll just highlight all of the items. Contingency, the projection is not changing. We're hoping not to have to use that money as of right now, but, so we're still projecting the 502 surplus, 502,814. On benefits, we saw an increase of approximately 50,000 from last month, and there was just a lot of activity related to folks dropping insurance or changing from married down to single or married down to dual. So there was, I believe, 10 different individuals who changed insurances over the last month, and that's what primarily drove that. And we also had one individual come off the waiver. Okay. Tuitions, we're projecting the same right now, the $120,000 deficit. We're about, we're really putting together now the, what's called the excess cost based on the tuitions, and we will have, I think we will refine that number for the next projection, but at this point, we're holding steady at the 120,000, and the excess cost estimate, we're keeping it budgeted as a net zero till we get the data into the state and get an idea of what they're gonna do with the data. Any questions on those?
Questions?
Okay, transportation, we saw an increase in the surplus of approximately 78,000. We had a student that was scheduled to be outplaced that is currently being homeschooled. So we are not transporting that student. And we also had a van just the other day that we're taking off. So you'll see that increase again next month, provided there's no activity going the other way. But we also reduced a van and an aide, I think just Friday, which I didn't want to update the document just because I had gone through and showed it to Sal. I didn't want to have the numbers moving, so I just thought I'd talk to it today.
How much is that reduction with the one van? What would that be about? Do you know? If you don't worry
I want
about
to say
it.
it was about 40,000 because it was a mid-year add
Yeah.
and deduct. And
No
that's
worries.
a van and an aide
Got it.
in
Thank you.
district.
So we'll
Okay.
see that next month?
You should see, yeah. But, again, we could put 3 kids somewhere.
That's true. I got that. Yeah,
so,
I understand.
Yeah, so I would anticipate that, that changing.
So, Don, when you say an aide, are we talking about a para? What's an aide?
No, an aide would
for the-
be an,
Transportation.
a bus- a
Transportation, okay.
transportation employee
Right.
Okay.
that's an aide on the bus, yeah.
Thanks, thanks.
Okay, but now that we're on salaries, we can talk, you could see a change of about 80,000. We were projecting a surplus, now we're projecting a deficit. We added a, one position at the was it social work? We added,
Contracted services. We had to add 3 social workers, actually,
okay,
to assist with some students who are experiencing significant trauma in our K2 schools, pre-K2 schools. So in order to maintain alternative learning environments for those students that we're going to be providing safe environments for themselves as well as their peers, we opted to add on a contracted basis, determining while we're still identifying where the students what their needs are. We have the additional support of a social worker Those are at-will employees through our contracted services, so if we change the needs for those individuals, those could either be increased or those could be decreased. But this is really just another example that I think the public needs to continue to hear the changing population and demographics of our district that contribute to a lot of things, contribute to our budget, contribute to potentially our outcomes. And so we just have to be very cognizant of that. When we look at our town is not the same town it was even 5 years ago, never mind 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So we could sometimes romanticize about the old Wallingford. It's not the old Wallingford. It is a very different Wallingford than what it was. It's a very exciting Wallingford. It's a very, we're very passionate about what we do for our students, but there are different needs of our students that we never, ever imagined even 10 years ago. So I just think that, again, you'll see this number and you're going to see some requests in the budget, again, that are going to be dealing with needs of our most significantly impacted students, emotionally impacted students. And we have to address those, and the board has always been very supportive of those needs and trying to address them in the most proactive way. But this is just another example. I approved another social worker, which is not part of this today, for another young member of our community that we need to make sure we provide for his own needs as well as those of his peers.
Mr. Votto?
So are these, they're at-will employees, is that what you said?
Yes.
Are they hourly paid?
They're not employees.
No, they're part of our
contracted.
contracted
So we
services, but
actually-
it comes under salaries,
we-
so they're not Wallingford Board of Education. You didn't approve them. They're part of the contract that we have with the outside group,
Okay.
the Delta T group. So we're hiring them. So if the needs of the student should change, decrease, or increase, we have the flexibility to toggle that up or down.
Mrs. Castelli?
Am I right in thinking this is the first time, at least in my tenure as a board member, of ever seeing a negative in the salary account? Have we ever had a negative?
I don't recall.
I don't think we've
I'm
ever had
sorry.
it, because it was pretty shocking when I saw it. So just something for us to think about with the new budget coming up, that maybe we, just need to be.
I think that this number shifts, and I think we'll see most likely this going in the different direction when we start factoring in and start getting more of our leaves of absences.
Well, that's true, yeah. Okay.
So
It is
that
early.
often
It is early, yeah.
changes.
Yeah.
So it's still early, so,
Right.
We're monitoring that very closely.
Probably what the
Um,
case has been is we've never seen the contracted services impact because it's been later, probably happened
Correct.
later in the year.
Correct. We hit there's, again, what we're finding, and we've already made some, just in the past 2.5 weeks, talking with the special education staff and having our meetings with them as a central office team. We've already made some adjustments to how we want to handle the start to school year next year for some of our most impacted students, to provide them a little additional supports as well as our staff. We also have to anticipate, I think it's now, we're in year 3, where we have to anticipate that we're going to get new residents to Wallingford for the first time that may come with increased needs that we have not experienced again, even 4 years ago. Never mind 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So I think we now have a trend that we're seeing. We didn't know if it was an anomaly for 2 years, but now we see it as a trend. So we started, as you know, the bridge team this year. That team, we need 4 of those, to be very truthful. And we are looking at how to figure that out, because the one team was occupied within the first day of school, with at least, we had at least 5 students that needed that team support with the first day of school. And again, students that they were not known students. These were students that were new residents or new members of our community. So it's a constant process. We're not alone in this. This is not just a Wallingford trend. It's just that we have, it's new to the extent that we're having it in Wallingford right now.
Mrs. Raccio?
You're on the bridge team, and does that team circulate?
Right now, the bridge team, we're looking at its configuration. It was supposed to circulate, but because, again, we had some very high-need students, we had to stop the circulation for a period of time. Now it's ready to circulate again. but we couldn't have it circulate because we, again, had some high-need students that we had to address for their own, safety, as well as their own academic abilities being focused upon, as well as their peers. So the team is ready now to move along, because now we're in week 10 or 11 of the school year. We've found that we've had to make other options available for some other students. So now it's freed that time for that team. But again, we're finding that one team for the whole district was a good start. That's why we have posted for a BCBA. That would be our employee. Another special ed / BCBA. They're not easy to find, as we shared with you. That's why we captured the moment when we had gotten one this year. Ideally, if we can get another one, at least have a team on either side of town. But in the same token, we are looking at our in-district programming from pre-K straight through to high school, but really focus pre-K 5, and we're trying to figure out some of those alternatives too. We have a variety of, as you know from the budget book last year, we put in a lot of documentation about all the different programs. We have a program that we host from Ben Haven for our students that we're looking at more closely. We're looking at where the students are developmentally, what their needs are. But yeah, the bridge team is now going to be able to move on, hopefully.
So how many are on that team?
As of right now, it's a 2-person team.
So do these 3 add to that team, or does it? make
No,
it
these
like 5
aren't.
and we try to
No,
fill
this is not. These people are not part of the team.
Okay,
These were separate, and they're working with individual students
Gotcha, okay.
to help make them have the most success they can during the school day, while we continue to investigate what's the ultimate best option
Gotcha.
for
Okay.
children.
Thank you.
Yep, no worries.
Other comments on this? Any questions on the Munis report? So we noticed that the total projected surplus is $660,852. That's where it stands. If there are no questions, we'll take consensus on the financial reports. Mrs. Corso?
Yes.
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 And yes. Next item is the cafeteria financial report. Mr. Mencher and Mr. Barone.
Thank you. So on the first report, C1 is our food service year-to-date comparison through the month of October on the left side of the spreadsheet. First category, income, just to note, we had 2 more serving days in October versus last year. And on the bottom left of C1, you'll see a revenue per day, which shows we were up $1,175, which is a nice statistic to see, and our expenses were $466 more a day due to the increase in meals. And our meals were up 215 meals a day, which is also a nice statistic to see. The reimbursement end, we were up $29,000 for the month of October, which if you break it up in the middle of the spreadsheet under the detail section of reimbursements, it shows you the lunch and the breakout, where the federal lunch is up $26,939, which is once again a nice statistic to see, and our federal breakfast is up $1,800 compared to last year, which shows you that more students are coming in for breakfast at both high schools. On the expense side, our labor cost expense for October was about 53%, and our food cost was 28%. These are both good percentages to be at. Food cost was 35%, if you recall, last year when we finished up in June, and our labor cost is usually in around 62 to 64%. Our net profit for the month of October was $28,000. Our year-to-date on the right side, which carries over from the summer months through October, we have a sales and revenue is up $80,000, mainly due to our work camps, to also include 2 more serving days, and as mentioned, 134 more meals per day. And we are showing a loss of $72,000 year-to-date, but we see improvement each and every month so far. Are there any questions on C1?
No, I think we can advance to C2.
Okay, we'll go to C2. C2, as you know, is the cafeteria operations, which is more of a summary, which roll over, the numbers from C1 roll over to C2. Our enrollment figure, as you know, does include the Holy Trinity School, so that's where the variance of that number plays a factor. Our October revenue of $211,954 and our meal counts of 47,000 to the far right column of the per day variance shows an 11% growth, which is once again a nice number to be at. As you can see, we had a good month in October. The second half of the spreadsheet shows you your expenses and the serving days to include the income per day and the expenses per day, all with year-to-date totals. And as mentioned, we have 2 more serving days versus last year. Any questions on C2? Okay.
Seeing none, we'll move to C3.
C3, as promised in the Board of Ed meeting last week, Dominic said we would have a balance sheet prepared for you to show you our cash flow and where we're at with that, if that's needed. We can move on to.
Can we just?
Could
Well,
we,
you wanna
could
go
you
over that?
walk us through that
Yeah,
a little
all
bit,
right,
please?
So, can I have this?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have, this is a standard Munis balance sheet right out of our accounting system. And the important section here is really in the assets, the first 2 lines, the cash food service line, which is showing a balance of $43,569, and the cash money market, which is showing a balance of $120,324. Those are the numbers we have to monitor. The cash food service, that's basically our operating account. That's where the revenues are deposited and the checks are coming out of. The money market is essentially our savings account, and that's the one we discussed that we would probably move money or potentially move money, but from there into the other account to pay bills. Those are the really key aspects of this report. The next item, the petty cash, that's the petty cash that's dispersed out at all the schools. That's why it looks a little high for petty cash. The intergovernmental receivable is really, that's basically an accounting entry. That's the entry the auditors make, or we make for the auditors at the end of the school year. We make it once a year. And that represents the sales we had, the federal reimbursement we sold in May and June of last year that we've actually collected, so we could actually make the entry to wipe it out. But typically, it's done once it has been in the past done once a year on an annual basis when the auditors come in. Okay, and then the inventory is, again, a number where is adjusted at the end of the year to show what, what our inventory balance is. Okay?
Inventory of food?
Food, yes, yeah, that would be what was,
Right.
in the freezers, et
Right,
cetera. Okay? The next section, the liabilities, okay, the accounts payable, the $29,000, 267, that's a rolling number. That's a number that is, as we input invoices into the system, it grows. Then when we pay the checks, it shrinks to basically to 0, and then we start the process over again. All right, the account after that, unused ROA, that's again an audit entry where at the end of the year, we take all the money we collected in the meal pay system as a prepayment and make an adjustment. So that's really money that was paid through an accumulation of what was paid throughout the year but not utilized. All right, the accounts payable, the $39.64 account, that is an entry that I'm gonna have to do a little research on. I believe it's a balance that's been coming along every year for X number of years. Okay, so that's what that represents. The deferred revenue is just catering money where we might have collected money before we actually did the catering. And then getting into the next section of what the fund balance. These are primarily system accounts that the system uses to maintain things in balance. I know that fund balance, to some folks, it might mean cash, but you know, in the Munis system, it's primarily system accounts that the accounting system utilizes to keep the balance sheet in balance. And I, you know, I could get into it more if you want, but it's not really, I don't believe it's relevant to you know, when we talk about cash, we're talking about food service and the money market accounts.
Okay. Any questions on this new report that was introduced this evening? All right, moving on to C4.
Moving on to C4 is the participation spreadsheet. It shows your, I like to highlight the average meals. You'll see, and what I do is I try to compare it out to the previous month, which we do not show you the previous month of September. But just to summarize that, we see an increase in the elementary sector on the average meals of 129 meals a day, which is, once again, a nice number to see, where the elementary's participation is growing. And the middle school, compared to September, I see a 56 more meals a day. And we're working at that program, as you know, from last operations meeting to grow those two schools, which need the improvement on my end. And the high school, comparing out to September, we also saw a 74 meal increase per day. So once again, as mentioned, October was a good month with meals going forward. On the free side, on the free meals, we also saw an increase for all three sectors. Elementary is up 55 free meals a day compared to the previous month, and 10 meals on the middle school, and high school we're up about 31 free meals a day too. So we are increasing on the free meals, as you can see. Some other statistics, we saw that the eligible families that were still applying for the state benefits, we've noticed an increase in on the free status. We saw 11 families were approved for free status in the month of October, and the reduced, we had 25 families increase compared to the previous month. And overall, we've had 36 families were increased on the program to be eligible for the program. And the other are just some statistics, but all positive, as you could see, which is what we like to see. Are there any questions on the participation?
Mr. Votto?
Yeah, just want to be clear. Under the elementary, you said you had a plus 129
Under-
in meals? I believe that's what you said.
The average meals?
Yeah,
Yes, 129 a day, right.
a day. Now, I take that number from the 1079.
Correct.
If I minus that, that's what last month was? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So last month was 947, Mike,
Okay.
in September.
I just want to
Yeah.
clarify that.
Mrs. Raccio?
When you say that there were 36 new families, do we know how many dropped off in October because the grandfather month stopped?
That's a good question. I would have to get back to you on that. I would have to check with Karen, my clerk, on, I don't have that information.
I just wonder if there's any way we can reach out to them and just like send them new application or
Absolutely.
something.
I'll look into that.
Thank you.
May I also ask if this is, you've rolled out the online application, is that how everyone is applying for this?
Yes, that's a good question, Karen. I just got the statistic today from Karen in my office. I asked her, and 20 new families were able to use the system since we put it online since September. It was a nice number to see, just 20 more families that we would have never had.
These are the applications for free and reduced?
Right, the online module.
But they're not all online. I mean, they can get a
Correct.
paper copy, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
It's more of a convenience
Right.
for the family.
Okay.
Any other questions on C4?
C4, yeah,
Oh.
we're all set, I'm sorry.
And then C5, there were,
C5 on the marketing, we start with the elementary, and on the bottom four, lines, just a few things I've been doing, is one way we're increasing elementary lunches is we're finding some theme items to use, and we market them, and we also get in touch with the parents through School Messenger. For instance, McCain's Potato Company has a baked smiley fry, emoji fry, so we brought that in, and the kids think that's pretty cool. Our ice cream sales, was able to monitor 2 schools, one of them being Moses Y. Not, just by moving an ice cream box over to the point of sale sign where the kids get their snack. She increased her ice cream sales by 3 times the volume just by moving the box over from the back of the kitchen. And then just a few other things. We talked about the theme food. So every year we run the theme chicken nuggets through a specialty poultry company, and we menued the Halloween nuggets, which we did last year. And once again, we saw a dramatic increase in volume that day. Of 160 more meals just in the elementary, which was about almost 30%. We noticed that. And I was able to School Messenger the parents and just let them know ahead of time that was coming up. And it's nice to see, and we're going to be doing the same process in Christmas with the same nugget, except it'll be a holiday theme of a Christmas tree or a snowman, which is pretty cool, and the kids get a kick out of that. And the last thing I did on the elementary to improve the lunch lines, as you know, will be an ongoing thing, is we are implementing the new student ID scan card system, and most all the schools are on board and have rolled it out with a demonstration with their students in their cafeterias, and that's just about up and running, so we're kind of excited about that too. That was the elementary. If you turn the page, we go to the secondary schools, and just the last 3 bullets, once again, to increase middle school lunches. We're working hard at this, and we took one of their favorite items that we only menued once a month, and we are now menuing the chicken and fry basket once a week, and we've noticed an increase in sales by 15%. We got rid of the foam tray, the 5-compartment foam tray, and we did a paper boat with a piece of deli paper in it, and we're presenting the food there with an extra condiment of a hot and sweet mustard, and they're hitting it. They like it. So, and that was one of the schools we had to work on last month to increase sales. So little things like that I think are paying off. Last 2 things is we're removing the PC packets. They're called the little individual packets. And we now have a full dispenser system in the secondary schools of the pumps, and they're all logoed by Heinz. And it was a no charge through the Heinz company that we were able to get a hold of, which is a nice marketing piece. It looks nice and neat out there. And then the last thing was to capture the non-meat eater. We were able to network with a falafel company out of New Jersey and get some samples up to the high schools, and we're bringing in a falafel sandwich, and we tried it at Sheehan, and Lenny, our manager, does a great job over there, and he said things were looking pretty good, and to market the non-meat eater, and we put that on a nice piece of warm flatbread with a yogurt sauce, and it's a nice item. All these things that we've increased, I gotta hand it to my managers. They've done a great job in listening to my lead and just implementing whatever's needed to do it, and they never are down on anything. They're just said, whatever you need, Dave, whatever you need, and it's a great thing. We have great people working for us. So any questions on the marketing?
No, we can move on to the customer service sheet, which I note there were no incidents in October.
Correct, there was no incidents, which is a good thing in October, yes. It's nice to see.
Okay, any other questions on the cafeteria financial reports? If there aren't any, we'll take consensus, starting with Mrs. Corso.
Yes.
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 And yes. Is there any public comment this evening regarding our operations committee? Seeing none, I declare that this meeting is adjourned.